Welcome to all. In this video you will learn how to create a Spring Boot web APIs. Here I am using the Spring Tool Suite 4. So let's start it. Click on File, New, Project, and type Spring Starter Project. Click on Next, and here you can give the application name. I am using a Spring Web API. This is our application name, and click on Next. Here comes the dependencies part. We need to add a certain dependencies into our application. So first dependency is Spring Web. So this Spring Web provides a core HTTP integration into our applications. So by this we can get all those mappings, request mapping, post mapping, get mapping, put mapping. Next we need another dependency called Spring Data JPA. So it is Java persistence APIs. So when you implement a new application, you should focus on the business logic instead of technical complexity and the code. So that's why this Java persistence API specification extremely popular, which JPA handles the most complexity codes of that JDBC based database access and object relational mappings. So that means which will it acts as a bridge between that object model and the database program, which will connect our objects to databases. So that's why we can write easily queries to our database. So click on the checkbox, and again we need a database. So there are multiple database: Oracle, SQL, MS SQL, but in this application we are using in-memory database called H2 database. So type H2 database, click on the checkbox and click on finish. Now our application content is loading. That means it's downloading all those dependencies into our application. Okay, so if you are not familiar with this IDE Spring Tool Suite 4, so if you are familiar with Eclipse, NetBeans or IntelliJ IDEA, you can download that Spring project from the browser and you can import it as a Maven project. So go to browser and type start.spring.io, which is a Spring initializer. Here you can mention the project, language, and Spring Boot version, and project metadata. And artifact means the title of your project, Spring, anything you can give. And here comes the same part, dependencies part. We need to add the dependencies, Spring Web and JPA and H2 database. So by clicking this generate button, it will download the zip folder, and we need to extract the zip folder, and we need to import that folder, project, as a Maven project in Eclipse or NetBeans or IntelliJ IDEA, any IDE. Okay, now our dependencies are downloaded, our application is open. Now go to source src main Java, in which you can see Spring Web API application.java, which is the starter of our application. And under the resource section you can see the application.properties. It is a file where you can give that all database connections. So in this application we are using the H2 database, so mention spring dot data source dot platform is equal to H2, and spring dot data source dot jdb url is equal to jdbc colon h2 colon member colon mem colon, and the database name which we need to create. You can give any name. Here I am giving Spring Web. Next spring dot h2 dot console enabled is equal to true. By giving this line, which enables the console for our H2 database, so that we can interact with the H2 database by using that console we can interact. So click on save, control S, and go to web application.java, and in this application right click and run as Spring Boot app. Now Spring application is loading. So in this Spring applications is as a feature that you don't need to add a Tomcat server as external jar files. It has embedded Tomcat server. You can see Tomcat started on port number 8080. Actually, we didn't add any Tomcat jar file in this application because Spring Toolsuit has embedded Tomcat server. Okay, our application is started. Now go to browser and type localhost colon 8080 slash h2 dash console, which is the UI of our h2 database. Now mention the JDBC URL which you have typed in application.properties spring typed yeah, spring web. Okay, S capital spring web, and click on test connection. Now test successful and click on connect. Yeah, now we are connected to our h2 console database. Now we need to create a table. So click on that Java folder, right click and new other, and we need to create one model class file which is a class. So class next, and the name we can give an employee. So employee, and give a package name also. Now click on finish. Now we need to write certain annotations called @entity annotation. So in this @entity annotation defines that a class can be mapped to a table, and that is, and it's just a marker like a serializable interface. That means it will map that table to our model. So, and we can give our variables also, private entity, private string name, and a private string subject. So by running this application, the employee table is created in that h2 database. So that is possible with the help of that annotation @entity annotation. So that's why we are writing @entity annotation. So it will create a table, employee table in h2 database. Now we need another annotation called @id annotation. So for every table there is a primary key. So @id we are giving for private int id variable. So that will take that variable as a private key, and generator value. So while we are inserting a new record into the table, for every inserting there need to be increase in that id value. So generator value which will automatically increase that id value from starting 1 to so on. Next, right click source, and we need to create a getters and setters. Select all and generate. Okay, control S, save, and relaunch our application. Our application is loading. Okay, Tomcat started on port number 8080. Okay, now go to that same h2 console. Now refresh again, connect. Now you can see that employee table is created with the help of @entity annotation. Yes, and run select star from employee. Now you can see there is no records available. Now we need to perform the operations by inserting the new records. For this we need an interface. So click on new other, type one interface. Next, and give a name web repository, web API repository. Yeah, and give a package also. now now what is a repository? So a repository is used to provide the generic CRUD operations. CRUD operations means create, read, update, delete operations. So by using this annotation added repository, which makes this interface as a one set of collection of methods, and this interface needs to be extends a JPA repository. That may be added dependencies called Spring Data JPA. So that JPA repository is which comes under the package of that Spring Data JPA dependencies, and which need to be have two parameters. One is the table, employee table, on which we need to perform the CRUD operations, and ID means the primary key of the table. Here um, int, okay, integer is the primary key. Now okay, import that employee table, employee model. Right, now we need another class called controller, which is used to handle all those requests. So create a new class, give a name web controller, and give a package also, controller. Click finish. Now to make this as a controller, we again need to use another annotation called @controller. So whenever we are typing any URLs which will handle by this controller only. So by typing @controller, which handles all the HTTP or request methods. So public string test, which is a method, return type string, return, give a sample, okay, return welcome to Spring Boot web API. Okay, now we need to handle this method whenever that path, that whenever we are typing some path, that method will be executed. So @request mapping, which gives that a path. So type a path, value is equal to slash test, oh sorry, the slash will be forward slash test. Okay, click on save and relaunch application. So whenever we are typing at that localhost colon 8080 slash test, then it will go to this test method and will execute all those code within that test method. So go to browser and open new tab and type localhost colon 8080 slash test. Click enter. Now you can see welcome to Spring Web API. Now it's working fine, our controller is working fine, it's able to handle that request. Okay, now we need to add a new record into our employee table. So public return type should be employee only, public employee, add employee. So which takes the input parameters as a request body. So type @request body. Okay, which is of the type employee, and give a object employee emp. Import employee model. Now we need to add a employee which we are given by the parameters we provide that employee information as a body, that ID, name, subject. Now this is now repository. We need to use a repository by perform the CRUD operations, right? So uh, we need to add a dependencies that JPA repository. So web API repository, and repo is object of that web API repository at the rate auto. So this is the dependencies. That means we are using that object reference in this controller. So just click on that JPA repository. You can see that all those methods available in that JPA repository. Find all by ID, list, save, delete by ID, all those methods available, predefined methods. So by using a thread attribute, um, that all those operations we can do it from this controller. That means we are referencing an object, a repo object, for a web API repository. Now just click type repo dot control, enter. You can see all those methods available in that web API repository. Now we need to perform save. So just type save, and give a in this parameter we need to pass employee, emp. Okay, now we need a return type. So we again returning employee. Whatever we are passing as a input, again we are returning that only. And mapping, which is of type post mapping. So post, type post mapping, and give a path. Value is equal to add emp. Okay, okay, and again relaunch our application. Okay, term card is started. Now in this case we need to pass the three parameters: ID, name, subject, for insert a new record. So from this browser I think we can't do. So there are some tools available like Postman and Restlet tools which are used for the testing purpose of that REST APIs. So I am using that Restlet client. In this you can this is the UI. You can see that all those methods: post, get, delete, patch. So this is extension Restlet client. You can get it from the Google. So this is a URL. You need to go http://localhost:/880/add employee. Now in this body section you can see that you can give ID, and ID is equal to 1, name, and you can see that employee table, whatever the parameters which you need to pass. So the generated value is ID. Okay, so we don't need to give the ID value because we are writing the generated value, so it will automatically create. Now click on send. Now you can see that post method 200 means the status is success. Okay, you can see the response 200, and here you can see the response body. You can see that ID value is 1. It will get automatically generated. We get the response. Why? Because we are returning that employee, return employee, right? Now let's just cross check whether that in a record is inserted in our database or not, and go to that URL and refresh, connect employee, and select star from employee. Click on run. Now you can see that ID 1, name, birth, and subject is Java. One record is created successfully in our database. So this is the post method. Now again insert another record, name Raju and subject Python. Click send button. Now the response okay, status. Now you can see that ID value is generated 2. Go to H2 database and run. Now ID value is generated 2, Raju, Python. Yes. This post method is working successfully.